On July the 4th, 1976, the United States celebrated its 200th birthday.
In my family, that's always been a custom on the 4th of July to read the Declaration of Independence out loud. It's quite a document, the soaring beauty of it.
Americans had not stopped believing in their nation's ideals, but not even the bicentennial could conceal a certain national discomfort. After a series of domestic and international crises, Americans were no longer so sure of themselves.
It was difficult. We've got an unelected president. We've got Nixon pardoned, hanging over us. We've just lost a war, but we were celebrating our 200th birthday. Everybody wanted to be positive, and they were. It was a night of reconciliation with our country.
Many Americans hoped that this celebration of a glorious history would spark an American renewal.
My family was an immigrant family. We came here with practically nothing. My wife was expecting. It was important for me personally that my child was a child of 1976. All the hopes and dreams that I had for myself and my country were with him.
I believed that America was going to turn around and become the land of the free and the home of the brave, and that she was going to come back to being that nation of glory. I believed it with all my heart.
In the late 1970s, there was an uneasy feeling that perhaps the nation's best days were over. America's prestige in the world had been tarnished in the Vietnam War. The Watergate scandal had eroded people's respect for their own leaders, and the 1973 oil embargo had sapped the economy, causing a baffling combination of high inflation and high unemployment. Faced with these setbacks, which thwarted expectations and undermined many dearly held beliefs, Americans began to pursue separate, individual paths to happiness. And in the process, they lost a clear sense of national purpose.
Can our government be decent and honest and purposeful and compassionate and filled with love? Can it be a source of inspiration and pride?
In the 1976 presidential race, an obscure candidate tried to restore trust in government.
My name is Jimmy Carter. I'm from Georgia. I'm going to be your next president.
You hope.
I hope.
My mother had said to me all along, he's going to be president. And I said, Mom, I said, I've never lied to you. He said, he's going to be president. I see it.
Jimmy Carter was a one-term governor of Georgia and a peanut farmer from the town of Plains. With his strong Christian faith and sense of moral rectitude, he represented the traditional values that so many Americans seem to have lost touch with in a decade of upheaval. But even as he campaigned against the mistrusted Washington establishment, he faced an uphill battle against voter apathy, especially among the young.
We didn't care about who was elected president. As a matter of fact, most of my friends, most of the people I hung out with, our interest in politics waned incredibly starting in the early 70s because we had lost the big cause, which was the Vietnam War.
All of these people who had been into changing the world, protecting the environment, stopping the war, making racial harmony, discovered that, in fact, they couldn't change the world. Where do they end up? They end up in these huge rooms where they're dancing like sheep, listening to mechanistic music.
It was a new sound, disco, that drove away the blues and set off discomania. Some 20,000 discos sprang up around the country, and the most famous one was in New York City.
Studio 54 was a place that everybody wanted to go to.
But not everybody could get in.
It doesn't matter if you're not shaving. Listen, just go home.
The doorman would point, and the crowd would separate, and I'd walk in. I really didn't understand why I or my friends were part of the chosen, but it was an amazing feeling. You felt like you were at the pearly gates, except you didn't have to die.
The ultimate in escapism, Studio 54 was a hangout for celebrities who danced to music with a driving beat and lyrics stripped entirely of social purpose. In the 1970s, the so-called beautiful people partied as if there were no tomorrow.
There was a lot of drinking. There was a lot of drugs. And I did see people snorting the shag carpeting and saying, you know, is this coke or dust?
It was almost as if people felt that the rules no longer applied to them. And I think that in many ways it was like the end of the Roman Empire.
All right, may I have your attention, please? Everybody ground and run your energy, please. I want your roses up.
The quest for a better society had narrowed into a desire for self-improvement.
Pat yourself on the knee and say, I love you.
It was in the 70s that the vogue for self-examination and self-study and self-exaltation began to play such a big part.
Would you take a look at his crown chakra and see what color he's vibrating on?
Something that
right now?
I finally call the me decade.
He's vibrating at a blue-green.
The lure of self-examination became very big. You put yourself on stage, and just the ordinary circumstances of daily life become the stuff of drama. And I'm convinced that it's one of the appeals of the feminist movement.
As women demanded a better role on a larger stage, a growing number of them decided to abandon their roles as housewives for paying jobs. In the domestic upheaval it often caused, a full half of American marriages ended in divorce. In the 1970s, it sometimes seemed that everybody was going in their own, often unorthodox direction.
Let us create together a new national spirit of unity and trust.
But like explorers of unmapped territory who longed for the familiarity of home, Americans elected a president who represented traditional small-town values, Jimmy Carter. On Inauguration Day, the new president set out to prove that all Americans were his neighbors.
Well, this is a first. The president and his wife out of the car walking their support.
We had never seen the president get out and start walking down, you know, Pennsylvania Avenue, and the people just screamed, and we was cheering on the TV.
Talking about it being the people's inauguration. He wants to be with the people. He is one of the people.
It was very refreshing. I think President Carter brought to this country a whole feeling of hope.
Hopeful as it was at the start, the new administration was about to face a series of debilitating challenges.